Can you stay with us, please? First, we want to have join us now former U.S. Attorney General under President George W. Bush, Judge Alberto Gonzales. Judge, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
First, your take on what you just saw and heard.
Well, it's certainly entertaining. Listen, from my perspective, Jorge Ramos is the ultimate professional. I think that he might have tried a different approach in this particular case, so I somewhat fault him for that. But I also, I've done plenty of press conferences. If I'd had that kind of situation, I probably would have said to Jorge Ramos, "Listen, we have protocol here. I'll get to your question, and I may do that at the end. But I think Jorge Ramos had some legitimate questions to ask." And I think it would have benefited everyone to hear Donald Trump's answers to those kinds of questions. But I kind of find fault in the performance of both these individuals here.
Judge, is Donald Trump leading the conversation on immigration right now?
Is he what, leading?
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly encouraging additional discussion about immigration, which I quite frankly think is very, very important. And so I'm glad that he's stirring up interest about immigration policy. I think this is a very important issue that affects our economy and affects our national security. And so for that reason, I welcome the discussion.
So, Judge, I think nobody would disagree with you that it's an important topic, and all the candidates feel that as well. Talk to us a little bit about, if you would, the legalities of what Donald Trump is proposing when he talks about immigration and he talks about getting rid of the illegals.
Well, I do agree with him that I agree with him that we need border security. I do agree with him that we are a nation of laws and our laws need to be enforced. I think some of the proposals, while interesting, may be unrealistic, if not difficult. For example, the deportation of 11 million individuals here in this country unlawfully here today. I think, first of all, we can't do it as a government. We talked about this in the Bush White House. But secondly, even if we were successful, it would be devastating to certain industries. I think also the notion of ending birthright citizenship, again, you're talking about an amendment to the Constitution, which is extremely difficult. I think what Donald Trump should be focusing on is a comprehensive legislative solution to our immigration problem.
All right, Judge, if you could stay with us real quick. We want to get back to Blake Berman because, Blake, apparently we have an upset ex-president that's out there right now. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there is a story in Politico this morning which is about Joe Biden. The headline is "Behind the Biden Hype" and kind of lays out his thinking and what his supporters are thinking at this point. But in that article, it also talks about what the Clinton camp is thinking. And while Politico reports that Hillary Clinton is not necessarily concerned about what's going on with Biden, that's not necessarily the case with Bill Clinton. According to that article, and I'll quote it here, they say in the last couple of weeks, according to a person who has spoken with Bill Clinton, he is very agitated. That is a quote about the possibility of a Biden candidacy. It goes on to say that he is incensed at the press hype around Biden. Of course, that press hype comes as Hillary Clinton's numbers decline and Biden is posting double digits. Sandra?
All right. Blake Berman, thank you. Judge, thanks. The idea of this Joe Biden run is being fueled by the classified email scandal at the heart of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Do you think Hillary is in trouble with her presidential run and or with the law at this point?
Well, but certainly I'm not a political pundit, but the numbers, the poll numbers seem to indicate that she's in a little bit of trouble. As to whether or not she's in trouble legally, that remains to be seen. People are running around out there saying that she violated the law. Other people are running around saying, listen, this is all political. She did nothing wrong. How do we know that? We don't know what the facts are today. And that's what's the current process is we're investigating the facts. And once those facts are known by an independent arbiter, whether it be the Department of Justice or the IG or whoever, then we'll be in a position to assess whether or not she did something that was wrong.
All right. So where do you see things ultimately going? Criminal investigation? What's the natural next step in this?
Well, I think the FBI needs to conduct an investigation. It's one thing for Hillary Clinton to say, I turned over all my personal emails. Well, how do we know that? How do we know? Yeah. And so I just think that we need to have someone who's independent take a look at what the facts are in this particular case.
Judge, I just wanted to go back. You are an American whose family members came from Mexico. On a personal level, the language that Donald Trump is using, how does it make you feel?
I know that it is offensive to some people. Quite frankly, I view it as some sort of through a political lens. Quite honestly, we're in the middle of a political campaign. It's a silly season. Sometimes people say things that perhaps in a different time they might say it in a different way. From my perspective, listen, this is all part of the political process. People will make an evaluation about who to support based on what they hear on the campaign trail. I genuinely agree with the notion that we need to have a very good conversation about immigration reform.
All right, Judge Alberto Gonzales, great to have you this morning. Great to get your perspective there.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, look.